Shruti-Smriti-Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat-Padam Shankaram Loka-Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krito Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Yomavat Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaye Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Naiva vacha na manasa
नैव वाचा न मनसा
praptum shakyo na chakshusha
प्राप्तुं शक्यो न चक्षुषा
asti bhruvatonyatra
अस्तीति ब्रुवतोऽन्यत्र
katham tadupalabhyate
कथं तदुपलभ्यते
asti tevo labdhavyah
अस्ति देवो लभ्यत
tattva bhavena chobhayoho
तत्त्वभावेन
तत्त्वभावेन
चोभयोः
चोभयोः
asti tevo labdhasya
अस्तीत्येवोपलब्धस्य
अस्तीत्येवोपलब्धस्य
tattva bhava prasidati.
तत्त्वभावः
तत्त्वभावः
प्रसीदति।
प्रसीदति।
That Brahman is Sat is shown, as we discussed, by two methods. One is you take creation itself, the whole process of creation, and that there is a Jagat which exists. And this Jagat must have a creator, because the whole Jagat is intelligently put together. Every component of every system works in perfect unison. You take the Sharira, how wonderfully this whole thing is structured. In fact, every time you look at the Sharira, I think it's a miracle to see how it operates. And childbirth, incredible. How every little thing is so perfectly aligned and created. This implies, obviously, that there is an intelligence behind this. A Karanam. A physical Karanam and a intelligent Karanam. Everything, not only the human Sharira, the human mind, every little bit of the human Sharira, you can see this. And then as we go higher, the whole cosmos, how it operates within certain limited range of temperature, of pressure. If any one of them, 1%, the speed at which the Earth rotates, the speed at which the various planets travel, the temperature goes up or down. We are already experiencing this. now talk about climate change. 1 degree change in anything completely disturbs the whole thing. But some people argue that you can't do anything about it. We do what we do, it will readjust itself. The whole system is so finely balanced, readjust itself. Life may not remain the way we know life now. Such a beautifully designed system at every stage, system within system within system within system, clearly implies that there is a creator. And if you say that the Jagat is, it is real because to us it feels real, then clearly that from which the Jagat is formed, the Jagat Karanam, must also be real. This is one set of arguments that Bhashyakara also bring. That Jagat is real and it's a Karyam, and Jagat Karanam is therefore real. You will not get a real Jagat from a non-real Karanam. Therefore, that Karanam which is the Mula for everything is the existence, Satyam. You can also look at it the other way. You take any element of the Jagat or all elements together, as happens in Mahapralaya, and that element gets destroyed. What actually gets destroyed is only Nama, Rupa, and purpose. One of the three or all three. But there are the second component of this, which is the existence, isness. That never gets destroyed. So what happens if we take it step by step? Our famous example of Angavastram going backwards to fiber and then into the fiber to atoms and so on. At some point we lose sight. There's a gradual change as you go into the Karanam, 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 Karanam. Then it becomes impossible to understand that because we don't have data. That data is not available for our perception. But that it is there, we can infer. Because first several steps we can see. Later steps we can't, but we can infer. Not only can we infer, Shastra tells us that if we keep going, there is ultimately one root cause. And therefore, with that root cause understanding, one can see that the isness is there in more and more subtle form till we come to the original cause, which is existence, which is Sat. Now, here is where Shraddha, the Upanishad brings in. You begin with saying that what Shastra says has to be right. I only have to understand how. Therefore, I have Shraddha. And therefore, Shastra says there is an entity which we call Brahman. Brahman Asti, Astitva. And then further analysis that Brahman Asti is still Dvaitam. Shankaracharya will point it out. That acceptance, Astiti Bruvataha, one who accepts asti, only then can he go to the next stage of understanding what this is. Asti iti bhravataha anyatra katham tat upalabhyate. If you don't even accept the existence of that, there's no question of understanding the truth of that. And Acharya will bring in both arguments to show that there is Brahman and that Brahman is nothing but Sat existence, and there is no other way of understanding than to say that that is I, Tattvamasi. So powerful, these two mantras, 12 and 13, that if you understand this bit, then it is relatively less difficult to get the aproksha jnanam, aproksha meaning, as I. So powerful is it that one commentator has written about this Bashyam, Sahastra Matrabhya api Hitaishini Bhashyam. Sahasra Matrabhya api Hitaishini Bhashyam. This Bhashyam is even more beneficial than 1,000 mothers. Typically, we all understand mother is the most beneficial thing for any human being, any being for that matter. This Bhashyam, if one can understand correctly, it is even better than, in terms of benefit, than 1,000 mothers supporting you. So one Bhashyakara, one commentator has been moved to make such a statement. We will read the Bhashyam and see how to understand this nature of Brahman. First, by recognizing that there is a root cause, a Brahman, Asti, and then transferring it to Asmi, that Brahman I am. Let's read the Bhashyam. There is the word Satyam, I can't see here, but the Acharya's Bhashyam starts with the word Satyam. I don't know. It is there. Satyam. Bhashyakara accepts something is Satyam. What is Satyam? He says this Brahman is not accessible, because in relation to the Puripakshi's argument, that if it is not accessible to the senses, it's not accessible to the buddhi, it's not accessible to words, then his argument is that it cannot exist. Because we know in this Jagat, only that which can be recognized by the senses, by the buddhi, by the words, exists. Nothing else exists. So Bhashyakara starts the Bhashyam by saying Satyam. Yes, it is true. What is true? That this Brahman cannot be recognized by senses, by buddhi, by words, by mind, any of these. Even then, this has to be recognized. Why is it cannot be recognized? Because we've seen already so many places, it has no linga. It has nothing to distinguish it. No characteristics, no properties, no kartrutvam, no bhoktrutvam. So clearly it is not available. So he says Satyam. Satyam
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 naiva vacha na manasa
नैव
नैव
वाचा
वाचा न
मनसा
मनसा
न चक्षुषा
न
न
चक्षुषा
चक्षुषा
न अन्यैः अपि इन्द्रियैः
न
न
अन्यैः अपि
अन्यैः अपि
इन्द्रियैः
इन्द्रियैः
प्राप्तुं शक्यते इत्यर्थः.
प्राप्तुं
प्राप्तुं
शक्यत
शक्यते
इत्यर्थः।
इत्यर्थः।
Shakara reiterates that Brahman is not accessible, na eva vacha for words, na manasa, na chakshusha. These are taken from the Mula mantra itself. And he clarifies, saying that when you say chakshusha, not by the eyes, not visible to the eye, it is not accessible to any sense. Not hearing, not taste, not touch, not smell, not accept, because there are no properties. These all will tell you, eyes will tell you, for example, colors or size. Then therefore we have something like big, small, blue, red, etc. Smell will tell you different types of smell, sweet smell, pleasant smell, unpleasant smell. Sounds will distinguish between different types of sound. There is nothing to distinguish. So, na anyaihi api indriyaihi praptum shakyate ityartha. It is not accessible to any indriya. Therefore, the word indriya atitaha you come across so many times. Transcends indriyas is one translation, but essentially what it means is not accessible to indriyas. So, Bhashikara straight away concedes that this is not accessible, but then the conclusion that you have drawn that because it is not accessible to any of the senses, because it is not accessible to the brain, to the buddhi, to the manas, and to words, it cannot exist. He said that conclusion is wrong. That conclusion is based on our experience of things in the Jagat. We are not talking about objects of the Jagat. We're talking about you. So he says, Tathapi
तथापि
तथापि
Sarva Vishesharahitah Api
सर्वविशेषरहितः अपि
सर्वविशेषरहितः अपि
Jakataha Moolam
जगतः
जगतः
मूलम्
मूलम्
इति अवगतत्वात्
इति
इति
अवगतत्वात्
अवगतत्वात्
अस्त्येव
अत्येव
अस्त्येव
कार्यप्रविलापनस्य
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 अस्तित्वनिष्ठत्वात्.
अस्तित्वनिष्ठत्वात्
अस्तित्वनिष्ठत्वात्
Even though it is not available for any of the senses, na anyaihi api indriyaihi praptum shakyate. Tathapi, even then, even though it is not accessible to any of the senses, we can arrive at the fact that it exists. Brahman exists. In fact, Brahman is existence, which will be the next step. Sarva Vishesha Rahitaha. It has no qualifications. So you cannot say a tall Brahman or a short Brahman or a good-looking Brahman. There is no characteristic. Although the very word Brahman comes from the Brat, meaning large. But in this case, Brahman is not just large. It is infinite. Infinitely large. That is the way it derived. But you cannot say large Brahman. It will imply there's another small Brahman also. It doesn't talk about that. Sarva Vishesha Rahitaha Api. Even though it is devoid of any form of distinguishing feature, even though it is not accessible to any of the senses, even then, Jagataha Moolam iti Avagatatvat. We can recognize this as the source of the Jagat. Jagat is real. At least to begin with, we say Jagat is real. And since it has to have a cause, there is a root cause for the Jagat. That's why we have these multiple examples, initially simple ones like gold and gold ornaments and clay and all the clay products, etc. Then you go to bigger ones with multiple products, multiple causes, multiple knowledge and skills and so on. And then the whole Jagat. Jagataha moolam iti avagatatvat. Once you understand that there is a moolam for the Jagat, Jagat is real, the moolam is real. You cannot deny it. Asti eva. Therefore, it is real. It is. That moolam is. So it is a conclusion you draw through inference. What is the observation? Jagat is there. It has a whole lot of variety. Things are big, small, near, far, tangible, intangible, all of those variations. And they all have the same root cause because we accept Shastra. And since they are all real, root causes also, they all is. The table is, the chair is, the mountain is, air is, everything is, life is. The cause of all of them also is. It says, Sarva Vishya Rahita Api Jagataha Moolam iti Avagatatvat, which is understandable. It is seen that there has to be a Moolam for this entire Jagat. Call it Brahman. That exists. The Moolam exists. Asti eva. And you can, he says very nicely, Karya Pravilapanasya Astitva Nishthatvat. You can look at any Karyam and arrive at the fact of the Karanam. This is our experience. Karya Pravilap, you keep producing the Karyam. Angavastram to something else, to fabric, to yarn, to fiber, to atoms, and so on and so forth. You know that in all of this, the moolam is still there. If fabric is the atma of an angavastram or a handkerchief or a duster cloth, yarn is the atma of the fabric itself. Fiber is the atma of the yarn itself. There is the atma. There is something that doesn't go away. Now we understand what goes away is only a karyam which is namarupa. Namarupa and purpose, they go away. So it says, karya pravilapanasya astitva nishthatvat. It is there. Asti, asti, asti is not going away. That asti is what you're looking for. That moolam is asti. So he says, the argument that because it is not accessible to senses, you cannot conclude that it does not exist. That conclusion would be wrong. Tatapi sarva vishesha rahita api jagata moolam iti avagatatvat. You can see that, you can understand that. Karya prabilapanasya astitva nishthatvat. That As the karya resolved into its further causes, you can see that the cause exists, asti. And he says, now look at the other way around. One is you have a whole jagat which is created. Jagat is real. Therefore, there has to be a real cause. That is asti. Tatha hi
तथा हि
idam karyam
idam
इदं
karyam
कार्यं
sukshma taratamya paramparyena anugamyamanam.
sukshma taratamya
सूक्ष्मतारतं
paramparyena
पारम्पर्येण
anugamyamanam
अनुगम्यमानं
Tadbuddhinishtam eva
sadbuddhinishtameva
सद्बुद्धिनिष्ठाम एव
vagamayati.
avagamayati.
अवगमयति
The Sat Buddhi is acceptance of the existence of that Moolam. It is. It says you can see it yourself. Tatha idam karyam, the whole jagat as karyam, you can keep breaking it down to the causal form, causal form, causal form, causal form, causal form. Each one step, you get a cause which is more subtle. A beautiful phrase here. Idam karyam sukshma taratamya paramparyena anugamyamanam. There is a whole parampara. At each level, it is more subtle than the previous level. The final Angavatram to fabric is more universal, more subtle. To the fabric that you are using to make the Angavastram, beyond is more subtle, more pervasive. Now, if you look at the Jagat itself, what do the models say? From that Atma came Akasha. Atma is the subtlest. From that came Akasha. Less subtle. And still in the Sukshma form. From that Akasha, Vayuhu, even less subtle. Vayor Agnihi, even less so. Agni Rapaha. Then Adbhya Prithvi. It has become more gross. And then, of course, you have the whole process of Panchikaranam. Everything becomes really grossified. The Jagat that we experience is completely gross Jagat. And Sukshma Jagat as well. But all starts with the most Sukshma, which is Akasha, space. So if you take anything and go work backward, you get Sukshmataram. So it says, Sukshma Taratamya Paramparyena Anugamyamanam. You can see that. One way of testing is, the less properties one has, the more Sukshma it is. Even within the Panchabhutas, Akasha, the first one, has already one property. Sound. Vayu continues to have sound but has another property. Touch. Like that. Agni has both of these plus form. And Apaha and Prithvi. By the time you come to Prithvi, you have everything. All five of the senses are accessible. as you go backwards in this Sukshma Taratamya Paramparyena, you will find that it is less and less accessible to the senses because it is more and more subtle. Sukshma Taratamya Paramparyena Anugamyamanam Sadbuddhinishtam eva avagamayati. It reveals that existence continues, easiness continues. Easiness is there. So when you break the entire Jagat down into its root cause, it is only existence. QED, that Brahman is Sat. Sat Buddhi Nishtam eva avagamayati. It shows, it reveals the nature of Brahman as Sad. And therefore we have in our thinking, Buddhi is what we have. To understand this, in the Buddhi we see that Sadbuddhi Nishtha. We can clearly see that Asti there. It's important to understand because the second line very clearly says, Astitye Astiti Bhravataha Anyatra Katham Upalabhyate. If you don't accept that Asti, then no way you're going to understand the nature of Brahman. So he's establishing, saying that Sadbuddhi Nishtam Eva Avagamayati. It is available. Yadapi
यदापि
Vishaya Pravilapanena
विषयप्रविलापनेन
विषयप्रविलापनेन
Pravilapyamana Buddhihi
प्रविलाप्यमाना
प्रविलाप्यमाना
बुद्धिः
बुद्धिः
Tadapi
तदापि
तदापि
Asatpratyaya Garbhaiva
सा
सा
सत्प्रत्ययगर्भैव
सत्प्रत्ययगर्भैव
Iliyate.
विलीयते.
विलीयते.
See, every object, everything in the Jagat has two parts. Namarupa is one part. Easiness is the second part. Namarupa can be destroyed, changed. Easiness continues. If the product is destroyed, where does the easiness go? It doesn't go anywhere. It goes into the cause of that. So our Angavastram is destroyed, easiness goes to the fabric. It still remains in the fabric. Fabric is destroyed, it remains in the yarn. So up to a point you can see that, and then you can rest it as inference. Yadapi Vishaya Pravilapanena, when the object is resolved in the Buddhi, Pravilapyamana Buddhi, Tadapi, even then, Sa Sat Pratyaya Garbhaiva Viliyate. The Sat Pratyaya, the easiness only moves to the next level. And this is important because the product gets resolved in our Buddhi. In Buddhi is where we understand the product itself. The whole Jagat we understand through the Buddhi. We are trying to understand the cause which is Brahman. So what do? We resolve each level of the product subtler and subtler and subtler and subtler till the Buddhi is able to grasp the idea of Brahman. It doesn't mean that we understand physically Brahman. You can't. You can't say, oh, today I've understood Brahman. Anybody who can say that means it is not yet understood. Yadapi Vishaya Pravilapanena, object being resolved, in the buddhi, tadapi sa sat pratyaya garbhaiva viliyate. Garbhaiva viliyate. It goes into the garbha, into the cause. Easiness doesn't go anywhere. It never gets destroyed. Easiness is that Brahman we are searching for. Satyam Brahma. Because we have only the buddhi to depend on. Buddhihi hi.
Buddhihi.
Pramanam sadasato yatma.
Pramanam sadasato yathatma
Asatoho. Sad asatoho yatatmyam avagame.
Tat
sat
asataho
asatoho
yadhatmyam avagame.
yathatmya
Buddhihi
gama.
naha pramanam. We have to use the buddhi, there's no choice. And we have to distinguish between sat and asat. Sat asatoho yathartmyam. Understand it for what it is. Avagame has to be understood in the buddhi. Because that's all we have to invest to understand. This is where I always get little, find it a little difficult. The same buddhi in which we have to understand the sad asat also has to be resolved. The buddhi also becomes vidya. And yet we have to use the buddhi only to gain that jnanam. Move from jnanam, ajnanam, understanding to jnadhatvarta. That is why at no point can I say I know. You can say I know only for anything to do with the Jagat. You cannot say I know when it comes to Tattvamasi. And you ask, somebody will ask you a question. When you say I know, who is the I who knows? No problem. Buddhihi hi naha pramanam sadasatoho asatoho yathatmyam avagame. We have to resolve this in the buddhi. The product gets resolved, and by inference, we take it step by step and say there has to, therefore, to be a moolam which is asti. What if it is not there? What if there were no moolam? What if there were no mula karanam? Remember the whole argument starting with saying that because I cannot sense it, because I cannot see it, because I cannot touch it, and because this cannot be described, it doesn't exist. What will happen if it doesn't exist? Acharya examines that. Moolam chet
Moolam ched
jaktah na syat
jagatah na
Jagatah
syat
nasya
asad anvidam eva idam karyam
asat anvidameva idam karyam
asat ityeva grihyeta
asat
asat
asat atyeva grihyata
na tveda dasti na tu
etadasti
etat asti na tu etat asti
na tu
natu
etadasti
etat
etat
asti.
asti. If it were not there, if there were, the moolam was asat, as contended by the Puru Pakshi, that was moolam che jagatah na syat. For the jagat, there was no moolam. What will happen? Asad anvidam eva idam karyam. The entire jagat will become asad because from asad only asad can come. So if there was no final cause, no ultimate cause of the jagat, then whole jagat will become asat, which is not our experience. You cannot just reject it like that. Asad anvidam eva idam karyam. Asad ityeva grihyeta. Then what will happen? We will experience the world as non-existent. We are experiencing currently the world as something which is real. We consider ourselves part of the world. We consider ourselves real, ourselves meaning our concept of ourselves, which is the body, mind, sense complex. And we sense that the Jagat is real. But if the Jagat did not have a Moolam, if it was Asat, Jagat also will be seen as Asat. Asat ityeva grihyeta. But it is not like that. Natu etad asti. It is not like this. Our experience, the Jagat is real. Our famous argument that if I stub my toe, it hurts. The stone on which I stub my toe is real. My toe is real. The hurt is real. To me, everything is real in Jagat. The Sharira is real. The pain that I feel is real. All that will be contradictory if I accept that there is no Moolam. What is our experience? Natu etad asti, but it's not like this. Instead, what is it? Sat ityeva tu grihyate.
Tat ityeva tu grihyate.
In fact, the Jagat seems real. Everything seems real. Like I said, the stone is real, the toe which stub on the stone is real, the pain is real, the jumping about is real. That is our experience. Therefore, you cannot say that there is no moolam, that the moolam itself is asat. Therefore, there has to be a moolam. And that moolam is real. Just like in the case of a pot. Yatha
Yatha
murdadi karyam ghatadi mitadi anvitam.
vitadi karyam
Vitadi
ghatadi
Adi
mitadi anvitam.
Anvitam
Tasmat
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 jagataha moolam
Jagataha
jagataha
Moolam.
moolam.
atma asti iti eva upalabdhavyah.
Atma
Atma
Asti
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 Ityeva
ityeva
Upalabdha.
upalabdhavyah.
Therefore, he establishes that moolam has to be there. It is real, asti. Therefore, the first part of the second line, which says, unless one accepts astiti bruvataha, unless you accept that asti, no further movement is possible. So that he establishes by these arguments, saying that moolam asti. Therefore, it says, like mridadi karyam ghatadi, mridadi anvitam. So that has to be there. Therefore, tasmat jagataha moolam atma asti iti eva upalabdhavyah. Therefore, we must recognize that there is this ultimate Karanam for the entire Jagat called Atma. Atma is a very funny word. There are so many meanings. Here it literally means the very Adhishthanam, the very cause of the entire Jagat. Atma also means I. But Atma, like I said, your Atma of the fabric is the yarn. Atma of the yarn is the fiber, without which the product cannot exist. Atma of the ghata is clay. So, tasmat jagataha moolam atma asti iti eva upalabdhavyah. Therefore, we must recognize Atma as the karanam, the moolam for the entire jagat. And then he goes on to the second line of this thing, so important a line. Kasmat
तस्मात्
तस्मात्
astiti bhruvatah
अस्तीति
अस्तीति
ब्रुवतः
ब्रुवतः
astitvavadinah
अस्तित्ववादिनः
अस्तित्ववादिनः
agamartha anusarinah
आगमार्थानुसारिणः
आगमार्थानुसारिणः
shraddadhanat anyatra.
श्रद्धधानात्
श्रद्धधानात्
अन्यत्र
अन्यत्र
I think we should separate Shraddhadanat. Anyatra Nastikavadinah.
अन्यत्र
अन्यत्र
नास्तिकवादिनः
नास्तिकवादिनः
Nasti Jagataha Moolam Atma.
नास्ति
नास्ति
जगतः मूलम्
जगतः
आत्मा
मूलमात्मा
Niranvayam Eva Idam Karyam.
निरन्वयम्
निरन्वयम्
एव
एव
इदं
इदं
कार्यम्
कार्यम्
Apavantam Praviliyate.
अभावान्तं
अभावान्तं
प्रविलीयते
प्रविलीयते
Iti Manyamane.
इति
इति
मन्यमाने
मन्यमाने
Viparita Darshini.
विपरीतदर्शिनी
विपरीतदर्शिनी
Katham Tad Brahma Tattvataha Upalabhyate.
कथं
कथं
तद्ब्रह्म
तद्ब्रह्म
तत्त्वतः उपलभ्यते
उपलभ्यते
कथञ्चन उपलभ्यत इत्यर्थः
न
न
कथञ्चन
कथञ्चन
उपलभ्यत इत्यर्थः
उपलभ्यत इत्यर्थः
See the sense of the whole thing. You must recognize asti, atma asti. That is established. Tasmat asti iti bhruvataha. Now you can look at the two sets of people. One who is clear that atma asti, brahman asti. And the other who still persists that there is no such thing, it's only abhava. So he compares the two. Astiti bhruvataha, ones who accept asti, and you can logically see. See, this is where I am so important to understand that pure tarka is not going to work. The tarka which supports Shastra will make it easy to understand. Shastra Anukula tarka will make it easy to understand. If you don't accept Shastra as a pramana, then no amount of tarka will really lead you in the right direction. We'll all lead you up a gum tree. Inevitably. Astiti bhruvataha calls it astitvavadinaha, the one who accept or convinced to understand, who have the shraddha that astitvavadinaha. How? Agamartha anusarinaha. Ones who follow Shastra. Not just say that, no, I understand because I have very high IQ, I know Sanskritam, I can read and understand, and therefore I have arrived at this conclusion. The moment you say, I have arrived at this conclusion, the chances are it's all wrong. You remember that statement? Andeneva andamananiya, andeneva andaniya niyamanaha. Blind leading the blind. You go follow them, they will take you down the garden path. Those who follow Shastra, Agamatha Anusarinaha, who accept Shastra as a pramana and use their own buddhi, use all the other tools you have, but Shastra backed. Astitvadinaha Agamatha Anusarinaha Shraddhanat, because of their Shraddha. So it's brought in the word Shraddha. One must start with that. You remember in Adhikaritvam, one of the key words is Shraddha. Shramadamadi Shakka Satpanti. What are the six of them? Shrama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, and Samadhanam. The Shraddha must be there. Otherwise, without support of the Shastra, you cannot grasp this. Agamarth Anusaranaha Shraddhadanat. Because of this Shraddha in the Shastra and what it says, you think, you question, you understand, you don't blindly follow. Shastra says there is Brahman, it is the root cause of everything, it is you. Straight away to grasp that is not easy, but you don't reject it. You say, okay, let me understand. I can't see myself as being Jagat Karanam, but I will still try to understand what Shastra says. Through repeated Shravanam, Mananam, Nidhyasanam, without ever losing Shraddha. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. Without that Shraddha, you cannot get this jnanam. Shraddhadanat, a person who has this astitva buddhi, he can gain this knowledge. We see this also in everyday things in our own lives. How does a mother teach a child to walk? By bringing in that confidence in the child, because the child has Shraddha in the mother, when the mother says, get up and walk, you can walk, you can walk, the child gets up and walks. If that mother was not there, the Shraddha was not there in the mother, and the mother was not able to show the child that it can do it, child will probably never learn to walk. This is Shastra is in the equivalent of the mother. And that Shastra we have to understand. Unlike a child, we also have the capacity to think. We have the capacity to question. Question, think, therefore Shravanam, Mananam, with Shraddha backing. Shraddhadanat. Without this, Anyatra, if you don't go this route, if you don't use this, Nastikavadini, one who does not accept Astitva Buddhi, who says, Nasti Jagataha Moolam Atma. There is no Atma, which is the Moolam for the entire Jagat. Niranvayam idam eva idam karyam. Abhavantam praviliyate ends up being abhava. There is no moolam which is asti. It's only asat. Praviliyate iti manyamane. Those who think like that, the viparita bhavana, viparita darshini, katham tad brahma tattvataha upalabhyate. How can they ever understand the real nature of Brahman if you don't even accept Brahman? And if we understand that nature of Brahman to understand is moksha, therefore a person who has nasti jagataha moolam atma cannot expect to gain moksha. Katham tad brahma tattvataha upalabhyate. How can he gain that? He answers himself. Na kathanchana. Never. Na katanchana upalabhyate ityartha. He can never expect to gain this jnanam. The jnanam is moksha. So he's brought it beautifully from both sides. You take the creation, you can see the moolam. You look at when pravilapanam, then also you can see. It has to end up there only. What happened in Mahapralaya? Everything gets resolved. Into what? Satyam. So both ways you can see that. One is asti. Asti iti buddhi is important. And then the Brahman will reveal itself. That we will see in the next mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om
Hari Om
Thank
Swami
you.
Ji.
Swami
धन्यवाद.
Om Swamiji.